Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this explosive breakdown of one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history, the fiery clash between Hollywood heavyweight Mark Wahlberg and the unapologetic force of nature, Whoopi Goldberg, on The View that ended with Wahlberg storming off the set in a blaze of frustration and raw emotion. It all unfolded on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning in late June 2025, as the summer sun baked the bustling streets of New York City, and millions tuned in expecting the usual mix of celebrity banter, hot topics, and light-hearted jabs that make The View a staple for morning coffee rituals across America. Mark Wahlberg, fresh off the promotional trail for his latest action-packed thriller, Redemption's Edge, a gritty tale of a former soldier grappling with moral ambiguities in a war-torn world, arrived at the ABC studios with his trademark Boston grit and that signature Wahlberg swagger. Think faded jeans, a crisp white tee hugging his gym-sculpted frame, and a smile that could disarm a room full of skeptics. At 54 years young, Wahlberg remains the epitome of the everyman's action hero, his career a rollercoaster from boy band heartthrob to Oscar-nominated powerhouse, with films like The Departed and Transformers cementing his status as a bankable star who doesn't shy away from controversy. Whoopi Goldberg, the EGOT-winning legend who's helmed The View since its inception in 1997, sat poised at the iconic crown table, her presence commanding as ever, dressed in a vibrant emerald pantsuit that echoed her bold personality, her sharp wit honed over decades of stand-up, sister act glory, and fearless commentary on everything from politics to pop culture. The episode was billed as a casual chat to hype Wahlberg's new flick, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered like a pot ready to boil over, fueled by years of unspoken Hollywood undercurrents and the host's reputation for diving headfirst into the uncomfortable. As the camera panned across the cheering studio audience, see a diverse crowd of housewives, influencers, and die-hard fans waving signs like "We love Marky Mark" and "Whoopi speaks truth." The stage was set for what would become viral gold, a moment that would rack up over 50 million views on social media within hours, spawning memes, think pieces, and endless debate about celebrity accountability, free speech, and the cutthroat world of live TV. Little did anyone know, this wasn't just an interview, it was a collision course between two titans whose worlds saw Wahlberg's blue-collar resilience forged in Dorchester streets and Whoopi's trailblazing fight against systemic barriers would ignite in spectacular fashion, leaving jaws on the floor and hashtags trending from LA to London. And as the applause died down and Barbara Walters' spirit seemed to hover in the studio lights, the co-hosts Ajoy Behar cracking wise from the left, Sunny Hostin nodding thoughtfully, Sarah Haynes beaming with optimism, and Alyssa Farah Griffin adding her conservative edge, introduced Wahlberg with effusive praise, setting a tone of admiration that masked the storm about to break. Wahlberg settled into his seat, that easy charisma on full display as he fist-bumped Whoopi, their laughter echoing like old friends reuniting. But savvy viewers could sense the electricity in the air, the kind that precedes thunder. The conversation kicked off smoothly, with Wahlberg regaling tales from the set of Redemption's Edge, describing grueling fight scenes shot in the scorching Moroccan deserts where temperatures hit 110 degrees, forcing the crew to wrap at noon to avoid heat stroke, and how he drew from his own life via his turbulent youth marked by arrests, his conversion to Catholicism, and his relentless work ethic to infuse authenticity into his character's redemption arc. Whoopi leaned in, her eyes twinkling with genuine interest, praising his evolution from Marky Mark to mature auteur, quipping, "Honey, you've gone from funky bunch to functional bunch, that's growth." The audience erupted, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like pure entertainment magic, the kind that reminds us why we love these unscripted gems. But as the clock ticked toward the commercial break Joy pivoted to the Hot Topics segment, teasing a deeper dive into Hollywood's inclusivity woes, and that's when the first crack appeared, a subtle shift in Whoopi's posture, her smile tightening just a fraction as she eyed Wahlberg with that piercing gaze that has silenced senators and shamed stars alike. What followed would unravel the facade, turning a promotional puff piece into a powder keg of passion, prejudice, accusations, and personal vendettas aired live for the world to witness. As Wahlberg sipped his water, oblivious to the incoming salvo, The stage lights seemed to dim ever so slightly, casting long shadows that foreshadowed the drama to come, a drama that would not only dominate headlines but redefine how we view accountability in Tinseltown. And in the control booth, producers exchanged uneasy glances, wondering if they should cut to break early, but ratings hunger won out, dooming or blessing, depending on your view of the show to its fateful trajectory. This is the story of that clash, pieced together from eyewitness accounts, leaked audio snippets, and the indelible footage that's now etched in internet infamy, a tale that starts with admiration and spirals into outrage, reminding us that behind every celebrity smile lies a story begging to be told, or in this case, exploded. So buckle up, because we're just getting started on this wild ride through ego, empathy, and the explosive end of an era on The View. As the hot topics hour ignited, the conversation veered from Wahlberg's film accolades into thornier territory, with Whoopi Goldberg seizing the reins to probe the elephant in the room, Hollywood's glaring diversity deficit. A subject she's championed since her days breaking barriers as the first black woman to win an EGOT, and one that's haunted Wahlberg's career like a persistent shadow from his less-than-stellar past. It began innocently enough, with Sunny Hostin commending Wahlberg's role in Redemption's Edge for featuring a diverse ensemble, including up-and-coming talents from underrepresented communities, to which Wahlberg nodded vigorously, sharing anecdotes about mentoring a young Moroccan actor on set, teaching him the ropes of emotional blocking during a pivotal scene where the character confronts his demons under a starlit sky, the kind of vulnerability that Wahlberg himself mined from his 1990s scandals. To think the infamous racial epithet incident that led to community service and a lifetime of public penance. But Whoopi, ever the provocateur, wasn't content with surface-level kudos. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to that signature husky timbre laced with steel, and asked point-blank, "Mark, you've come a long way, baby, but let's get real. How does a guy like you, with your history, feel about greenlighting projects that still sideline women and people of color while you rake in the leads? Is Redemption's Edge truly redemptive, or just another white savior tale wrapped in explosions?" The studio fell into a hush, the audience's murmurs rippling like waves in a pond disturbed by a stone, as Wahlberg's jaw tightened imperceptibly, his blue eyes flashing with a mix of defensiveness and dawning realization that this wasn't the fluff piece he'd prepped for with his publicist over lukewarm kale smoothies that morning. He fired back with measured intensity, explaining how the script was penned by a female writer of color, how he'd advocated for more authentic representation by pushing for unscripted improv scenes that let actors infuse their cultural nuances, drawing parallels to his own production company, Unrealistic Ideas, which has backed indie films spotlighting immigrant stories since its 2016 launch. Joy Behar jumped in with her trademark sarcasm. "Oh, come on, Whoopi, Mark's not the villain here, he's just the guy who shows up shirtless and saves the day," eliciting chuckles that briefly diffused the tension. But Whoopi pressed on, undeterred, her hands gesturing emphatically as she recounted statistics from recent U.S. CNN reports showing that only 18% of top-grossing films in 2024 featured non-white leads, a disparity she attributed to gatekeepers like Wahlberg who, despite his apologies, still benefit from a system built on exclusion. Wahlberg, feeling the heat creep up his neck like the desert sands he'd just escaped, countered with passion, recounting his work with the Boys Girls Clubs and his faith-driven commitment to second chances, insisting, "Whoopi, I've owned my mistake, has paid my dues," literally and figuratively, but painting me as part of the problem ignores the progress I'm fighting for every damn day on set. The exchange escalated, voices rising in a crescendo that drowned out Sarah Haynes' attempts at mediation, her soft southern lilt pleading, "Let's remember we're all on the same team here, promoting stories that matter." But it was like whispering into a hurricane. Alyssa Fair Griffin, drawing from her White House days, added fuel by noting conservative viewpoints on meritocracy versus quotas, which only sharpened Whoopi's retort. "Merit, honey, merit's been whitewashed for centuries, a time to color it in." The audience was split, half applauding Whoopi's firebrand truth-telling, the other half murmuring support for Wahlberg's earnest pushback, creating a palpable divide that the cameras captured in split-screen glory. destined for TikTok edits with dramatic slow-mo and overlaid text screaming Clash of the Titans. Behind the scenes, whispers from crew members later revealed Wahlberg's team signaling discomfort via frantic texts to wrap it up. He's heating up, but the show's format, that relentless roundtable rhythm, propelled them forward into deeper waters. Wahlberg, his Boston accent thickening under stress, delved into personal territory, admitting how his 2001 community service after the hate crime conviction reshaped him, leading to therapy sessions where he unpacked privilege he never knew he wielded, and how that introspection fueled his portrayal of flawed heroes who earn their grace through grit. Yet Whoopi, drawing from her own battle-rejected auditions in the 80s, typecast as the sassy sidekick, saw echoes of unexamined entitlement in his narrative, challenging, "Growth is great, Mark, but allyship means amplifying voices, not just starring in their stories." The back-and-forth ping-ponged like a high-stakes tennis match, with Sunny-siding data on Wahlberg's box office dominance correlating with stagnant diversity metrics, while he parried with examples from Dead and Daddy's Home where ensemble casts shone diverse lights. As the segment stretched perilously close to overrun, the air thick with unspoken hysteria, saw Wahlberg's 90s edginess clashing against Whoopi's civil rights-rooted vigilancy. The fuse shortened, and what started as dialogue teetered on debate, then detonation. Fans watching at home, from PTA moms in the suburbs to industry insiders in Burbank, live-tweeted their reactions. #Wahlberg vs. Whoopi surging to the top trends, a digital wildfire spreading faster than the producers could contain. And in that charged moment, as Wahlberg's fist clenched around his microphone, the collision wasn't just about one film or one pasta. It was a microcosm of America's ongoing reckoning with race, redemption, and the roles we assign our stars. A reckoning that would soon erupt beyond the table's edge. The tipping point arrived like a thunderclap in the midst of the gathering storm, when Whoopi Goldberg, her eyes blazing with the fervor of a woman who's stared down presidents and prejudice alike, escalated the interrogation by invoking Wahlberg's infamous 1988 arrest for assaulting a Vietnamese immigrant while hurling racial slurs, a dark chapter he's publicly atoned for through documentaries like No Sudden Move, Wait, No, through his 2017 film Patriots Day inspirations and charitable endowment succeeding millions to anti-hate initiative ESSA, demanding to know if that baggage had truly been unpacked in his advocacy or if it lingered like an uninvited guest at Hollywood's inclusivity feast. The studio gasped collectively, a sharp intake of breath that sucked the oxygen from the room, as Wahlberg's face flushed crimson, his easygoing facade cracking under the weight of a spotlight he'd thought dimmed by time and good deeds. His response a guttural defense laced with vulnerability. "Whoopi, that's ancient hysteria. I've spent decades making it right, from funding scholarships in Dorchester to ensuring my sets are safe spaces where no one feels othered because of what some punk kid said in anger. You're hitting below the belt here, turning my growth into a gotcha moment." The co-hosts froze in a tableau of awkward solidarity, a Joy's quip dying on her lips, Sunny's notebook forgotten in her lap, Sarah's conciliatory smile faltering into concern, Alyssa's measured nod turning to wide-eyed alarm as the audience's applause fractured into boos and cheers, a cacophony that mirrored the nation's polarized pulse. Whoopi, unflinching, her dreads swaying like pendulums of judgment, elaborated with surgical precision, weaving in anecdotes from her View archives where she'd grilled other stars on their blind spots, insisting that true redemption demands not just apology but action, like Wahlberg using his clout to champion directors of color beyond token roles, her voice rising to emphasize, "Mark, we're not here to crucify you, we're here to elevate us all, but silence on systemic sins is complicity, and your resume still whispers it." Wahlberg, cornered yet combative, leaned into the table, his forearms veined from years of dawn workouts, countering with raw honesty about his faith journey, how Catholicism's emphasis on confession and contrition pulled him from the brink, leading to partnerships with the Jesse Jackson Foundation and on-set diversity clauses in his contracts since 2020. But his tone edged toward exasperation. "I've evolved, Whoopi, but this feels like you're weaponizing my past against my present, ignoring the bridges I've built while you sit in judgment from your ivory tower of awards." The barb landed like a slap, Whoopi's nostrils flaring as she retorted, "Ivory tower, boy, I clawed through concrete jungles you can't imagine. You don't lecture me on judgment when your industry still got more white knights than diverse queens. The exchange devolved into overlapping shouts, words tumbling like avalanche snow, Wahlberg accusing the panel of selective outrage, Whoopi charging him with deflection, the other hosts interjecting futilely like referees in a brawl. Ladies and gents, let's breathe. But the heat was volcanic now, spewing lava of long-buried resentments. Viewers at home clutched remotes, hearts pounding as the rawness unfolded unfiltered, a far cry from scripted spats on reality TV. This was therapy session meets town hall, with stakes as high as the ratings spike it promised. Social media lit up instantaneously, X, formerly Twitter, ablaze with threads dissecting every syllable. Activists hailing Whoopi's unbowed stance, Wahlberg loyalists decrying cancel culture ambush, and neutral observers marveling at the authenticity amid the agony. Back in the studio, as commercials loomed, Wahlberg rubbed his temples, muttering under his breath about unfair piling on, while Whoopi crossed her arms, her expression a fortress of resolve, unyielding in her mission to provoke change, even if it meant personal peril. Crew footage later leaked showed stagehands hovering near exits, anticipating chaos, while the director's voice crackled urgently in earpieces, "Keep crawling, this is gold." And as the argument crested, Wahlberg standing halfway from his chair in agitation, gesturing wildly about his family's immigrant roots, his Swedish-German heritage blended with the melting pot of South, clashing against Whoopi's invocation of intersectional feminism. The panel became a pressure cooker with no release valve, the air electric with the scent of impending rupture. It was here, in this maelstrom of memory and manifesto, that the personal pierced the professional, turning colleagues into combatants, and setting the stage for the walkout that would seal the episode's infamy. A walkout born not of petulance but profound hurt, the kind that simmers for years before boiling over in the unforgiving glare of live television. This wasn't mere drama, it was a cathartic unmasking, forcing both men and women of influence to confront the mirrors they'd long avoided, and in doing so, sparking a broader conversation that rippled through award seasons and boardrooms alike, questioning whether stars can truly outrun their shadows or if the past is prologue in perpetuity. Pandemonium peaked when Mark Wahlberg, his voice cracking with a mix of defiance and disillusionment, hurled a counter-accusation that sliced through the den like a knife through silk, pointing at Whoopi with a trembling finger and declaring, "You talk a big game about accountability, Whoopi, but what about your own blind spots? Hypocrisy much when you defend folks who've said worse and gotten passes because they check the right boxes?" A veiled nod to long-standing rumors swirling around Goldberg's past associations during her comedic heyday, whispers of edgy jokes that skirted lines now deemed unforgivable, though never substantiated beyond tabloid fodder. The studio erupted into chaos, audience members leaping to their feet in a frenzy of divided loyalties, some chanting "Whoopi, Whoopi" in rhythmic solidarity, others yelling "Let Mark speak" in boisterous support, the cacophony swelling to drown out the host's frantic pleas for order, with Joy Behar waving her arms like a traffic cop gone rogue, shouting, "Time out, people, this ain't WWE." While Sunny Hostin buried her face in her hands, murmuring prayers for decorum, Whoopi, her composure fracturing for the first time in decades on air, slammed her palm on the table with a resonant thud that echoed through microphones, her rebuttal a torrent of indignation. "Blind spots, child, I've owned mine publicly. From my early bits to my activism, don't you dare equate my satire with your slurs. That's not equivalence, that's evasion." The verbal volleys intensified, Wahlberg pacing now like a caged lion, his promotional poise evaporated into primal advocacy for his narrative of transformation, citing specific instances like his 2023 donation of $2 million to NAACP-backed film grants as proof of proactive allyship, while Whoopi dismantled it with incisive counterpoints, referencing Hollywood Reporter expose copyright tests on how such gestures often serve as PR band-aids over deeper wounds, her words whipping like clashes in the charged atmosphere. Sarah Haynes, tears welling in empathy overload, tried bridging with, "We're all human, flawed and fabulous, can't we find common ground in that?" But it landed flat amid the fury, Alyssa's attempt at bipartisan balm. This is why dialogue matters, even when it hurts, like wine swallowed by the roar.